ask everyone to take their seats? We're ready to begin. Good evening and welcome to the Special Legislative Commission on Reapportionment. Tonight is Thursday, December 1st, and we are coming to you from CCRI in Newport, looking tonight at Newport County and the effects of the different plans that we have. I'd like to ask the clerk to call the roll.
Co-Chairman Stephen R. Ucci.
Present.
Co-Chairman Michael J. McCaffrey.
Present.
Representative Grace Diaz. Representative Donald L. Lally. Representative William Sanbento Jr. Representative Joseph A. Trillo.
Present.
Representative Daniel P. Riley.
Present.
Senator Mary Ellen Goodwin. Senator Beatrice Lanzi. Senator Juan Pichardo.
Present.
Senator David E. Bates. Senator Francis T. Ma Jr., Delia Rodriguez Mazjone, Felix Apollonia, Francis J. Flanagan,
Present.
Matthew F. Gunnup, Arthur V. Struther, and Ray Rickman.
Thank you. Before we begin, I'd like to recognize some of our colleagues from the legislature who are here tonight. Senate President Paiva Weed is here. Senator Felag is here. Representative Martin is here. Representative Edwards. And Senator Hodgson is here. So welcome, and we look forward to working on this issue with you. This time I would ask Kim Brace to give us an update on where we are and an overview of what we'll be doing tonight.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. It's good to be here in Newport again and not have it raining. If you recall, we were drenched by the time we got down here last time. For today, we're going to end up doing a little bit in terms of the binders and some of the packets that we gave out to you and some of the process updates, and give you a short briefing on the plan alternatives, because what we really want to do is we want to have public input. And so our goal is to try to let as much time be available for the public to speak tonight. In background side, what we have is several things in terms of the binders. We are finding that the binders are getting rather thick, and they're likely to get thicker as we have more pieces of paper. And so we are going to expand your binders to 3-inch versions, which means that we need to take your binders with us tonight. So if you were one of those that normally took their binders home with you, for some strange reason, we'd like to take those binders from you tonight so that we can expand those over the weekend and give you new binders with everything in there. We will make an attempt to make sure that you have every piece of paper that we've done, everything that's up on the web, and all of that information will be in your new sets of binders. So please, at the conclusion of tonight's session, leave your binders with us so that we can update that information for you. We also have in your packets for tonight, there were just inserts for the Newport area of those maps. Those are there for you. We'll hole punch those and have those then in your binders also. Last night we passed out in our meeting in South Kingston a lot of material in your packets. If you were not with us last night, we have your packets from last night. We have a lot of reports and a lot of map sets, and we'll go through those also. We also have an update for you in terms of our website. Again, it's redistricting.com. We are trying to advertise that much as possible. The site has been updated with all of our plan alternatives and the reports. They are all up there on the website. Up there also are maps that are very large in size. We did those, while it may take a little bit of time to download, as you download them onto your computer depending upon your internet speed, we did those so that once they are on your computer, you'll be able to zoom into them and be able to see individual streets with street names so that you can look throughout the map, throughout the state, and get a feel for any of the various plans that are there. So be sure to avail yourself of that. We have an update tonight of the sign-ins that we have had in our website. Here's a map of the graphics of where people have signed in. We're starting to fill out some of the towns and cities in terms of dots, so that's good. And we continue to get upwards of 5 to 10 sign-ins a day is now happening as people seek out information. Again, that website is www.redistricting.com. Also, we passed out last night a new set of what we were calling A versus B reports. We revised the state Senate, the state House plan versus towns from before that we had given you to correct Representative Trillo's home address and got him correctly placed in the right district on that side. We also have had member visits from at least 4 other members in that intervening time, and we've updated their home addresses also. So all of that information is up to date in terms of the state house plans. We also have for you, starting last night, we had new A versus Bs that look at your existing House and Senate districts compared to each of the various plan proposals, so that you can see for each plan proposal where the pieces of your districts would be going to, including what percent each piece makes up and where it goes to on that side. So all of that information is there for the 2 House proposals that are there and the 4 Senate proposals, and we are working on creating those A versus B reports for the congressional plans. Also in the packet from last night, we have generated, at Representative Trillo's request, an overlay of the districts, the existing districts, onto the map proposals. And we produced for you in the commission 11 by 17s. Copies of those are in the back for the general public here, so that you could see for each of the proposals what's happening to each of the individual districts. So hopefully this answers commission inquiries last time to make sure that things are as clear as possible. You can see and you can compare what's happening to each of the districts and where they're going in each of the proposals. I would add that those maps are very good to use in conjunction with the A versus B reports. They actually go hand in hand, and I was planning to try to do something tonight, but I never got the time to do it, but I will do it for Monday night, of showing you how the A versus Bs can be read in conjunction with the maps. Now, as has been announced, we have a number of different proposals. The State House District Proposal A, we were creating these by looking at different starting points and really showing the impact of what happens when, in example, Plan A on the House, you start in Westerly and draw from Westerly around through Providence and back out to Newport, and then what happens by the time you get down there. And here's the inset that we have for tonight's presentation, is that inset of the Newport County area, so that everyone can see exactly in more detail what takes place. That was on your desks as well as available to the public tonight for each of these plan proposals. Plan B of the House started in Newport and then went in the opposite direction, so that we could end up seeing what takes place as you draw district alternatives. Again, the same information is done as an insert in Plan B for the State House. For the State Senate, we have 4 plans. Plan A started in Westerly and comes around to the Newport area. And then Plan B started in Newport and goes around in the opposite direction. Then Plan C ends up starting in Providence, came down the East Bay, and back up again on the western side of the state. And this is what would happen in Plan C. And then in Plan D, that again started in Providence and went down the west side first and came around then to the east side, and this is what would happen in Plan D as in David. Each of those plans are different ideas and different proposals. We did the same thing with the congressional districts, and there are 4 proposals in your packets on those also. This is an example of, well, this is the existing districts for right now, for congressional districts. Proposal A does a change in that it takes all of the city of Providence and puts it in the 1st congressional district, eliminates Burrillville, but what that does mean is that you don't come down all the way to Newport in terms of congressional district 1. Newport area would go over to congressional district 2 in congressional Plan A. In Plan B, again keeping with Providence wholly in Plan B, we started down at Newport and went up to see how far you could get in terms of the congressional side. And Plan C ends up looking at one of the things we were trying to determine in the additional alternatives was whether or not we could draw something that had all towns whole. And we have determined that that's not possible to meet the maximum that the courts require of having congressional districts with a deviation of down to really 1 person. Because of that requirement, the closest you can get with having whole towns is about a 458 person deviation on using whole towns. So in view of that, then we started looking at how to split Providence. And so that's one alternative in Plan C, and a different alternative and a different split in Providence in Plan D as in David. I'm working on creating separate inserts for the Providence areas, so we'll have that for you and in your packets and available up on the website also for people to take a look at. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission might have.
Are there any questions for Mr. Grace at this time, Representative Trillo?
The last time we talked about getting the population of PC as the college. Do we know what that population is?
I don't off the top of my head, but we'll get that for you. I don't know that right now off the top of my head, but we'll track it down for you.
Well, the biggest thing that I'm concerned about is that we don't change radically that congressional district.
Okay.
I said before that what we need to do is move the lines in Providence one way or the other to accomplish what we need to accomplish, and we might be able to pick up, several thousand population just from PC.
Right.
Once we know that population figure.
Okay.
So I really think that
Okay.
we need to see that.
All right.
Thank you.
No problem.
Are there any other questions? Earlier, I'd failed to welcome my good friend, Senator DePalma, who's here, and Representative Russ Jackson as well. So, continue, Mr. Brace.
Okay, at this point, we'd like to invite members of the public to come and talk to the commission and talk to us in terms of your reactions to all of the different plan alternatives. Each of the plans have been put on large boards up here so that you can look in depth, and I think we've been trying to make sure that everybody has paper copies of that. We do ask that when you make comments in terms of your plans, we'd like you to be specific. We'd like you to talk and tell us what chamber or body you're talking about. Is it the House plan, the Senate plan, the congressional plan? We'd like to know what specific plan you're telling us about and what area or districts you are telling us about, so that we have information and comments on people that we can, that is actionable, and we can go back and look to correct if people are pointing out problems with something. So that's the key that we'd like to get from the general public. And with that, I'd like to turn it over and have people come up and testify.
Thank you, Mr. Briggs. We do have a sign-in sheet, so but if anyone hasn't signed up, obviously we'll add you to the list, so I'll go through this first. So first we'll call John Marion from Common Cause.
Thank you very much. I'll be brief. There's been some question about the congressional plans, I know, publicly, since they were unveiled Monday. And a couple people who know that I've been coming to these have been asking me for copies because they haven't been up on the website, and I know they're trying to get them on the website. So I put some up. I actually scanned the copies I got last night and put them up. And it generated some questions that I just wanted to share. And it was essentially questions about more information. So I know Mr. Brace just referred to trying to zoom in on Providence and provide that, because in some of these plans, that's where the division is made between the districts, and it's difficult to tell. So we look forward to seeing that. The other was to create the A versus B for the congressional plans too, which I assume would be not nearly as weighty a document because you're only talking about 2 districts. To help people gather not just physically where the line changes, but what types of people are affected by that. I know there's a lot of speculation about who's being hurt and who's being helped potentially by this, and I think some people are trying to divine that from the maps and would like the data. So again, this is actually people on Twitter and Facebook and phone calls to my office asking these for this information, and I wasn't able to provide it. So if there's any way to produce that, I think the public, and there is a public watching this online or following this online that isn't here, would like to see. So I just wanted to relay that.
Mr. Brace, do you want to respond to that?
That's not a problem, and we'll be having those, the maps and more details up on the website, we hope, by tomorrow, so that people will be able to come to the website and get that information.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Next, we have Patricia McLeish from League of Women Voters. Did I say that right? No.
The next time.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Patty McLeish, and I live in the Point section on Walnut Street here in Newport. I'm here this evening to speak on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Rhode Island, and in this instance, more specifically, the League of Women Voters of Newport County. The League of Women Voters supports a state redistricting process and standards that promote a fair and effective representation of the state legislature and in the U.S. House of Representatives. The League further believes that the standards on which a redistricting plan is based should include substantially equal population, geographic contiguity, and protection from the diluting of voting strength of a racial or linguistic minority. Further, we feel the standards should prohibit the consideration of political affiliations of registered voters and previous election results. And finally, to the extent possible, the standard should also include respect for the boundaries of municipalities and census boundaries and considerations of geographic boundaries, particularly where there would be an impediment to travel within a district. Even a cursory review of the plans presented show that as regards to Newport County, the plans do not live up to these standards. The League makes these comments while fully realizing that Newport County is made up of several islands, making the issue of contiguity very difficult. That being said, it is really hard to understand why there are no plans at all that keep more of Aquidneck Island within the same House districts. Under both House Plans A and B, Aquidneck Island is represented by 7 different House districts. The town of Portsmouth appears to bear the brunt of these divisions, with both House plans dividing the town among 4 representatives. In House Plan B, Hog Island and Prudence Island fall within District 69. These 2 islands contain only 1.5% of the town of Portsmouth's voting population. In House Plan A, where at least some of District 69 includes part of the Aquidneck Island portion of the district, the percentage of Portsmouth citizens in the District 69 is only 1.7%. Middletown and Tiverton come out only slightly better under the Senate plans. With Senate Plan C, Middletown is in fact divided into 3 Senate districts. In Senate Plan D, Tiverton is divided into 3 districts as well. Now, why should this matter? In voting for senators and assembly members, the citizens of a voting district should be assured that the concerns of their town and neighborhoods are truly represented by the senators and assemblymen. Let's just look at one issue that unites Aquidneck Islanders: bridge tolls. In Senate Plan D, part of the town of Tiverton is included in Senate District 10. When it comes to the issue of bridge tolls, will the citizens of the northern section of that town feel secure that the senator from District 10 will represent the town of Tiverton, when their senator's district is composed mostly of towns to the north and includes citizens who might never travel to Aquidneck Island? Might not those citizens of District 10 who are not so dependent on bridge travel feel that tolls on the bridge are a good thing? The same quandary arises for the senator representing Senate District 12, which under the plans include Middletown, Little Compton, and Tiverton. Raising tolls on the Pell Bridge might seem a good idea to a good part of that senator's constituency, but not to the citizens of Middletown. These divisions of the towns into many parts that do not share contiguous boundaries or common interest and have little respect for the boundaries of municipalities dilute the strength of a citizen's vote in the State House. The League would like to see a greater respect for these municipal boundaries and more consideration of the common interest of the citizens within the voting districts of Newport County, and in particular, Aquidneck Island. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McLeish, are there any questions? Ms. McLeish? I'll get it right from now on. So I thought the L was an H, so I'm sorry. Thank you. Next, Senator Felag, did you want to come forward?
Thank you very much, Commissioners. Just to inform the League of Cities and Towns, or the League Newport voters, I'm the senator that represents District 10, and for the last 10 years or so, I've put in the no tolls for the Saginaw River Bridge and the Newport Bridge. So if D ever gets approved, I can rest assured that I'll be there supporting no tolls for those 2 entities. You have a difficult task before you when you put together these maps, just like the Commission did 10 years ago. And one of the things that should be noted as you go through this is the population of Newport County, which comprises of 6 towns: Tiverton, Little Compton, Newport, Portsmouth, Middletown, and I want to include Jamestown because all my comments are going to be relative towards Jamestown being in the Newport County, because I believe it currently exists within that county, Newport County now, and it's an integral part of the overall aspect of it. But when you take those 6 towns together, you're talking a population of about 82,000 people, which is, as I looked up today, it's probably the population of Warwick or the population of Cranston. So we're looking at a distinct area here, and the only unfortunate thing is that it comprises all those different towns. And I think what we have to do is to start looking at a regional concept here. And by including the regional concept of including Bristol County, which comprises Barrington, Warren, and Bristol, you now have a population of 132,000, which is less than Providence of 178,000. So when you're looking at that aspect, I think it's important to have that fair representation and to look at the current district as it's comprised and why it was put together that way 10 years ago. And I believe that district was put together 10 years ago because of the social economic status of the people within that district. If you look at Marion, for instance, and I may not be able to be there next Thursday, so I'd like to give my comments relative to the East Bay as one entity. Barrington was not put with Warren because Barrington and Warren are two diverse communities from the social economic perspective. So Barrington was put with Rumstick in the Highlands of Bristol. And then Warren was put with the North End and the center of Tiverton, which was more so socially economically statused with Warren and Bristol and Tiverton. And if you look at that district closely, for the past 45 years, Warren has always been lumped with Tiverton. Previous to that, there was always one senator per each community, no matter how large or how small. But in 1964 or so, when they started to have these senatorial districts, Warren was included with Tiverton and has been for, like I say, over 45 years. Now, why is representation important from a area perspective is that currently Newport County has 4 senators that represent the district. We represent the area because of the importance of this area. When we talk about tourism, we talk about the defense industry, and naturally when we talk about the tolls. Because as you know, the Turnpike and Bridge Authority are responsible for the Newport Bridge and the Mount Hope Bridge, but there's been discussions about whether or not they should take over the Sakonnet River Bridge and the Jamestown Bridge. So it would be imperative that we have 4 senators representing those particular interests. On some of the maps you see in A and some other ones, you may limit yourself to only 3 senators. The same thing is true in the Bristol County area. When you divide the 50,000 and make only 2 senatorial districts, then you're eliminating the aspect of having 3 senators down to 2. So I guess my conclusion is that we should almost start from what the existing maps are and look, as I know, because of the fact that we're going to have to move up and start in James, and I would hope that we would start the senatorial districts in Jamestown and Newport and move north from there. And if you do that, I know that we have Newport's probably down about 1,700 or whatever they are, and Portsmouth's down that number, but make sure that we at least have 4 Senate districts within the Newport County. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Next, we'll hear from Senator Palmer.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for being here in Newport tonight, and I'll welcome my other Senate colleague from great city of Providence. Thanks for being here tonight. I will be brief. I do represent Senate District 12, which is 4 cities and towns, all of Middletown, all of Little Compton, the southern tier of Tiverton, and the northeast corner of Newport, so to speak. If you look at looking at the map, and looking at the, I've gone through those in pretty much detail. Senate Proposal A through Senate Proposal D. And when you take a step back and you try and do an evaluation of one on the other, it's easy to do it from a numbers perspective, because all they are numbers. But then if you take a step back and you say, well, how does one compare to the other? You then look at what's the criteria one might use to differentiate this map from that map. And then there really isn't any when you come back to it. So I go back to, as Senator Felag indicated, the work you folks did or accomplished, whoever was involved 10 years ago, I'm sure was a monumental task to bring it to the districts that they are today. So I'll leave you with, my comment would be, if it's not fixed, don't break it. But in some areas where the numbers are so large that you need to redistrict some areas, I would encourage you to focus on those areas and then leave the other ones intact to the degree that they can stay intact. Obviously, as Senator Felag indicated, population has shifted, and we've seen that out of East Bay into Bristol County into Providence. So that needs to be addressed. But focus on those areas, on how they need to be addressed to meet the numbers from a population perspective, socioeconomic, diverse backgrounds, and those other areas that need to be modified or modulated to achieve the numbers. I'd encourage you to do the modulation you need to do there so that the representative districts are just about the same. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Hodgson.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, thank you for having me. It's nice to see you again. For those that weren't with us last night, I had the opportunity to speak to the Commission in South County, and I was proud to welcome you there as a South County legislator. Tonight, I'd like to address you as a prospective Newport County legislator, and I'm going to direct my comments to Senate Proposal C, and under Proposal C, the area of North Kingstown in which I live is going to be encompassed in a district that would be comprised of 14% Portsmouth, 20% Middletown, 19% Jamestown, 26% Narragansett, and about 20% North Kingstown. I would just start by echoing a comment of a couple of my colleagues that have preceded me that there really is nothing wrong with my district as presently constituted. Speaking with our local leaders, they feel that the contiguous representation of North Kingstown and East Greenwich is complementary and has been effective for a couple of decades now. However, the census apparently has led us to some rather dramatic changes in the district composition. And I am here actually to advocate for Proposal C. Of those four proposals, as it relates to where I live, my part of the state, it is the most contiguous. And perhaps more importantly, because it's important for all of us to remember that this is not about political careers, and it's not about the politician who lives in a particular district. It's about all of the citizens that live within those boundaries. So more importantly than that this is more contiguous than anything else proposed for my part of Rhode Island, is that it does the least damage to the town of East Greenwich and does not turn that town of 14,000 into a community that's represented by 3 senators, each having a small piece of the town. Some of the benefits of Proposal C. The first really relates to equity between residents of those 5 communities. As I've just given you those breakdowns, while the Portsmouth number is a little bit lower and the Narragansett number is a little bit higher, essentially this divides a 5-town district into 5 equal divisions of population, which in political campaigning terms means that no one community is going to have an amount of undue influence over the outcome of this election. In contrast to some of the other districts that I've seen, or my potential districts, where one town would have, say 70%, and then the other towns really are just fillers for population. But perhaps more in terms of what helps you reach your goal of devising fair districts to the citizens of Rhode Island, I would draw your attention to the commonalities in this district that would stretch from the Exeter town line to the eastern shore of Portsmouth. The first would be an overlap in populations. When I spoke with Mr. Baker here, he assured me that nobody from Aquidneck Island would ever vote for somebody who didn't live on the island to represent them. And I trust his experience. He has 29 years of covering politics here, so he has seen these elections come and go. However, what I told him was we do have an overlap in populations. I can't give you a hard number, but as I knocked on about 3,500 doors in my last campaign, a great deal of individuals, particularly in the very small part of North Kingstown that would remain in the district that I would be standing for election, a great many of those citizens work in the defense industry here in Newport County, whether they're working in Portsmouth, Middletown, or Newport. They come here professionally. And so we are inextricably linked by that connection. That is not the only commonality in terms of the population. There are certainly many present constituents of mine as presently constituted that work in the tourism industry, the defense industry, as I mentioned, and indeed agriculture. As some of you know, that's my family's background, and I live on the farm in North Kingstown. The citizens and the citizens of this district are certainly not the only alignment that would support this somewhat unusual district. The first alignment, I would say, is looking at Portsmouth, Middletown, Jamestown, Narragansett, and North Kingstown. What I see is 5 well-managed communities. And those are 5 communities whose fortunes are going to rise and fall based on state house policy. And in particular, as we all know, it's going to be how we address issues such as municipal pension plans and our debt and funding problems. I would note that while I've been a state senator for the last 11 months, I've been frequently called to respond to resolutions that have come from the town councils and school committees of all 5 of those towns. Portsmouth, Middletown, Newport, Jamestown, all of them were extraordinarily concerned about the issue of binding arbitration. And in sending their resolutions to me, they found a voice. And I would make the same observation with regard to Governor Chafee's purge of the education reformers for the board. That's simply an example to say these are statewide issues of statewide concern. And I'm going to defer to Mr. Baker's seasoned knowledge of Newport politics. Perhaps I could never be elected here. But this isn't about me. This is about the people that I would be seeking to represent. And for the benefit of the present district that I have of East Greenwich and North Kingstown and Warwick, and for the benefit of the residents of the proposed district that includes North Kingstown, Narragansett, Middletown, and Portsmouth, I would urge you to give strong consideration to Proposal C. Thank you.
Representative Trello?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only comment I would like to make to you, Senator, I don't know whether you're only of the assumption that we have to deal with Plan A, B, C, or D, and that we have no other alternative, but any one of these plans can be modified.
I have no doubt.
I didn't know whether you were aware of that.
Representative, I would be on record on behalf of my constituents to advocate that my district remain as it is stated by the election data services folks when I met with them prior to the unveiling of these maps, where they cured my district by adding 600 people to the bottom line, and it looked essentially the same. But I understand that this is purely numbers, and it's not consideration to where individual senators and representatives live. So, we all are at the mercy of simply a numbers game, and no one of us is more important than the other.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, is there anyone else who would like to come forward to testify who didn't sign up?
Hi, I'm
Mrs. Cicilline.
Bud Cicilline, and let me disclose that I'm the chairman of the Newport Democratic City Committee, but I'm not representing the city committee tonight. I really was struck by some statements that Senator Felag offered, and I come here to let you know I've been living in Newport since 1968, and as a consequence, you get to sense of the community and what it's like. And I think that there is very much an interest on the part of the people who live in Newport County to essentially retain its identity, its borders, and work with other communities that have like interests and like goals. And just to let you know, in addition to being a former politician, I do work full-time, and one of the jobs I have is I'm the president and CEO of Newport County Community Mental Health Center. And in its name, it just sort of defines that our objective is to provide services, behavioral health, mental health services, to people who live and work in Newport County. But in addition, there are many other organizations, service organizations that identify with Newport County as an entity. And one would be, for example, Newport Hospital, but there's other organizations, service organizations like East Bay Community Action, Child and Family Services, Visiting Nurse that laps over into Bristol County. And in some measure, by virtue of a lot of other developments, we've all been very conscious of bridge development and what the bridge might mean, or new bridges might mean for us. But apart from that, and there can be some division in opinions on tolls versus no tolls, but in any case, the point I'm trying to make is that I also want to mention there's another entity called the East Bay Collaborative, and what's been going on for many, many years is an effort, although not always successful. We've not seen school regionalization, as some would hold is a good idea, but nevertheless, there's a lot of interest in working together. One of the other things I do, I chair a group called the Newport County Reentry Council, and we're talking with inmates who come from Newport County, trying to help them out. And every time we kind of work on things, it's with this essential identity. Newport County is how we see things. So I would urge the Commission to consider that as a pretty important thing. The people who live and work here identify with the community for a variety of reasons, and that anything that would be dramatically different would be a much harder thing, and I don't think it would make a whole lot of sense. So basically I'm saying is let's keep Newport County intact. Certainly East Bay as an entity, as Senator Felag was eliciting. I'm not familiar with these maps in A, B, C, D. C doesn't sound so good to me from what I'm hearing so far, but what would work was, the extent to which East Bay communities can retain its identity and working together politically, service-wise, in any other way. So I just wanted to put that perspective before you. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward to testify? Okay, with that, our next hearing will be Monday night at Johnston Senior High School at 7 p.m. Again, I would encourage everyone to go on to the website to look at the maps that are there, to sign up to get email alerts for any changes that are on the website, or contact Mr. Brace at the State House, and all of the contact information is on the website at redistricting.com. This time I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion made, seconded by Senator McCaffrey. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you for coming out this evening.